mic right now. Does it work the same when I turn in my head? Oh, that's when I turn and face the mic a little bit better.
Yeah, that's so good.
This is good?
Yeah, it should work. It's like going to be right there. We're actually going to start. You ready to start?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
You got a quote?
I do have a quote.
Okay, cool.
I know you're excited.
Bro, I had a quote.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Look at us both prepared today.
Yeah. Well, you know what it was? I listened to a podcast on the way in this morning, and they said a quote that I really liked.
We could do yours.
I think I still have it pulled up. Give me one sec. I'll pull it up.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about the quote yet. First, we're going to talk about how so we did the podcast. So if you guys listened to the last podcast, obviously you have heard the buzzing that was in the back. Okay. I didn't care at first. Okay. I was like, you know what? We're doing this podcast. We're doing it on our free time. It's just like a thing that we're doing, and we'll continue to develop it. Right. I feel like that is the approach you have to have going into it initially.
MVPs. We talked about this.
Yes. But also, then I got really pissed. And I was like, fuck this. What kind of loser mentality is this? And I'm like, no, it's okay, whatever. I asked my brother-in-law, and I was like, hey, did you, notice it? Was it pretty noticeable? And he was like, yeah, it was pretty noticeable. And I was like, I tried so hard to, find a way to get it out. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's, an expert out there who's like, oh, yeah, dude, you just got to hit this fucking button here. It's really easy. But I could not figure it out. And I think this is part of, in starting anything, this is the difficulty. I mean, so the issue was I had wireless Rode mic goes I bought two of them, 3 months apart from each other, but within the last 6 months. Both of them went out. I went home to try to trouble tech it. They both went out.
That's lame.
I was so pissed. So, the internal mics that we talk into, they both went out. Don't know what happened. I'm looking it up online, looking on YouTube, and there's this guy, and he's posting about how he had the same issue, and then all these people are commenting, yeah, I'm having the same issue. I'm looking it up online, and I see Rode in the comments, send it back to us or let us know, and we'll help you out, right? Yeah. So I'm like, somebody at Rode knows. I don't know if it's just some low level, whatever, but somebody knows who handles their media or marketing, and I was just like. And then I had to email them and stuff like that. I'm like, I got to send these, I got to get these fixed. They cost me $200 each. Oof. Right? So I'm, $400 plus shipping, and none of them work after 4 uses. I think that was the issue with the feedback that we're hearing, right?
I assume so.
Yeah, I assume so.
The guy at Rode knows. I don't know.
So we're using two Rode mics. I have my studio mic here. And then I picked up I was so mad. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm getting another mic. And I went and got this interview Rode mic. And I was like, you know what? This one's good. And this mic is a $400 mic. That mic is a $180 mic. But I was like, for this, we're fine, right?
But
I was pissed. But I think this is, you sound good on here. You can't hear it, but I can. But the thing that pisses me off is I don't know how I should feel about it. I don't know how you feel about it. If you were mad, if you're this is lame or whatever. But I was like, this is shit. We have this equipment. I expect this equipment to work the way it should. And I set myself to very high expectations. And this is what happens. Do you have any feelings about it? You're just whatever, get the fucking podcast up and I got shit to do.
That's what my internal dialogue is telling me, yeah. But really no, because I'm just comparing it to shit that I see in the gym. You've heard me talk about it, the rubber mats. I have a bunch of rubber mats that make up my floor, and I spent tons of time in back-breaking work tiling them, making them nice and beautiful and straight. And then someone drops a weight and it shifts, and it drives me fucking bonkers. So then this little seam starts to show the floor below the rubber, and no one notices.
There's this crack over, so the mat, the turf you have right here, yeah. You cut a weird shape into there, yeah. But there's still another sliver there.
I know.
And I was staring at it this morning, and I was like, I wonder if Greg has seen this. I was like, when he does, he's gonna lose his mind.
If it's there, I've seen it. And I do lose my mind on a regular basis. But I just need to finish trimming up the edges to make everything nice and tight.
I love it. So I do want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law in England. He's a doctor. I did give him a shout out on the last podcast, but we're fucking throwing that podcast away because it sounds like shit, and we're going to put this one up. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Nija out there, and to see if he's actually listening. And I know you and I have talked about, like, how do we want to filter ourselves on our podcast? Like, do we want to just put it up, just do what we want to do, or do we want to be, like, conscious about what we're talking about? And you said, you know what, just do it, man.
Yeah.
Just do it. So you were on the phone, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but you were on the phone and you heard me laugh, and I want to read it out loud, and I want Dr. Nija to comment on Podbean and answer this for us.
Okay.
To prove that he's our number one fan, he's actually listening.
Hit me.
Are you ready? I don't know. Just listen. All right. The human anus can stretch up to 7 inches before taking damage. A raccoon can squeeze into a hole as tight as 4 inches, meaning you can take almost 2 full raccoons up your ass.
Where did this come from?
It was on Instagram, just like some random post up there.
What do you follow, bro?
Dude, I follow everything. Online. But I want to know, is that true, Dr. Nija? Answer the question for us. Prove that you're our number one fan. Get it in there. You ready to get started?
I'm ready to rock.
You're ready to get started. All right. Give me 1 second.
You're listening to The Hard Money Show with Mac and Greg.
All right, you ready for this?
Yep.
So I watch podcasts at like 3 a.m. while I'm driving to work, and I heard this quote within the podcast, and I liked it. Most of us aren't defeated in one decisive battle. We are defeated one tiny, seemingly insignificant surrender at a time that chips away at who we should really be.
So you don't think that, like, there's one big defeat that just, like, that's it? Like, that's what took you out?
Right. So
give me an example.
So this is by Jocko Willink.
Because this must have resonated with you if you went out of your way. You battled me to do you're like, no, I really want to do the quote today, Mac. Like, yeah. I deserve to do the quote. Yeah. So this must really resonate with you.
Well, we talk about startups all the time, right?
Right.
And I've been pedal to the metal myself. Like, more so recently than ever before.
For the business?
For the business. And if
you
anyone
mean at this location or just in
period,
like the last 6 months?
Yeah. I mean, growing this location, having new people come in, now have 5 independent contractors. Like, there's a lot of moving parts,
right,
and things going on beyond this, right? So I've just been backbreaking work at the moment, and I have other people like, bro, you're missing workouts. You okay? Like, yeah, I'm fucking okay. I'm just trying to work. And then I have people go, oh man, you look tired. Well, I am fucking tired. What do you think? You know what I mean?
How do they know you're missing workouts?
Because all my guys are here. They see me. I'm here all day and I'm never working out. I'm just
But you're working, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. My active calories are like 5,000 calories burned a day. That's not a problem.
Right.
But, I shrink if I don't eat enough, and,
All right.
But,
all right.
But here's the basic thing is, I was like, man, it was stacking up against me, and I was like, I'm losing it. I gotta get control. Like, I'm kind of losing my edge because I'm getting tired. But then I kind of got reinvigorated by all these people asking these questions, because I'm like, well, that means you're not doing it, right? So my whole, I'm trying to crush everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So the times when I'm super tired, but I drag around that extra piece of rubber.
Right.
Or the times where I'm like, God, not another session, but I do the 13th session of the day when everyone else would cancel. All those little things are going to help me win, while everyone else who's not doing them, you're losing. I'm the one beating you, 100%.
Right.
And if there's people out there beating me, but I'm just saying.
So I'm trying to track what you're saying. Are you saying that this quote reminded you about how other people are losing and you're winning?
Well, I try to make everything sound like that to myself in my head.
That's what it sounds like.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm trying to use myself as an example, right?
Okay.
And I hear people do this in their workouts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, yo, 12 to 15 reps on this set.
Right.
And they do 11. They're like, oh, I just didn't have it. Well, you did. You did. So you shorted yourself a rep. Then you did that 5 days this week. So you shorted yourself 5 days this week. Right? So you did it 20 times this month?
How many people would you say, like, maybe not training, because maybe that's not the best example, but let's say like a workout partner or like on the field for paintball or whatever, would you say like you said you need to do 15 as an example, and they couldn't do 15, but you're like, you know what, legitimately you couldn't do 15.
How often does that happen?
Yeah.
Almost never.
Almost never.
Almost never.
So if it almost never happens, then wouldn't you argue that that's just the standard? Like, if most people are like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you're saying, like, even in the professional world, right? Most people, if there's 15 to do, and, like, they physically could do 15, but they, like, psych themselves out and don't, then that's just kind of how everybody is, right?
Well, that's like why there's a 1%, right? That's why the 1% is the 1%.
But even, you're telling me, even in the professional realm of paintball, or I'm sure you've been around other athletes.
Oh,
they're the same thing.
Yes.
So how the fuck did they become pros?
Because they're naturally talented. Well, I'm telling you, this happens more than it does suck. But this is the reality, and this is coming from a professional athlete. I worked very hard to be what I am. Yeah. I know a ton of guys that are around me that are just as good as me that didn't have to work for it.
Right.
But their mentality is broke. Like, they're not going to have the ability to carry over what it takes to be a professional athlete into their real lives because they didn't do the work to get there. They just happen to be good at something.
Sure.
That's why you know the name Michael Jordan, but you don't know half the dudes that were on that team.
Okay, yeah.
You see where I'm going with it? And maybe that's an extreme example, but yes, at the professional level, dude, I know CEOs that can barely tie their own fucking shoes. I'm telling you, they come to my gym. I know them. Yeah. They can't count, but they can't tie their shoes, and they make multi-million-dollar contracts.
Somebody else can tie their shoes for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
But that's the level I'm trying to be at.
That, you and me too, man. I want someone to brush my teeth for me. But you see what I'm saying? Like, that exists, and yes, there's exceptions to the rule, and there's all these other things, but as a general concept, I think people overlook all these little cheats that they do that add up to losing.
Right. Okay. Say the quote one more time, because I wanna hone in on this, because what you're saying I totally agree with, but I want to talk about it. So say it one more time.
Okay, I'll read it better this time.
No, you read it great. Great, you're such a great reader. I love when you read.
Damn it. Most of us aren't defeated in one decisive battle.
Right.
We are defeated one tiny, seemingly insignificant surrender at a time that chips away at who we should really be.
Okay. See, the way that when you read that, the way that this is why I'm having such a conflict with it, the way I felt about it was, it felt like you were essentially reading to me that this is why people fail all the time, but like in a more tangible failing way. And like, what does that kind of like feel like, right? Because it's like, say for instance, you want to lose weight, right? And like in your example, right, you cut yourself, like you're like, I need to do. Anybody who's involved in the fitness industry understands that growth in fitness comes from those last reps.
Yes.
Right? Those reps are what makes the difference in your fitness. And if you don't do those reps, read Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about this very thoroughly, that's where the gains come, right? That's where, and so in that kind of idea of like these people who are trying to hit this goal, you're not failing because, I guess you are, but it's not like you're not failing because there's one gigantic thing that happened to you. You're failing because you cheated on your diet this time, and then, like, let's say in a week, cheat on your diet, and then you cut these reps loose, and then you probably called in one day. Like, that's what you're saying, essentially. And that's the reason that they're mediocre.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So really the key to success is just not doing that. It's just to do it then.
It's to do the shit that's really hard. It's to do the shit that you really don't want to do it, and do it anyway.
Right. Don't want to be an asshole about it, but I mean, this isn't a valuable podcast if we can't tell people how, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the reality. Like, I think so many people here, especially people who lose a lot. I actually been thinking about this a lot, right? I've been thinking about you a lot.
Oh, thanks, Doug.
Yeah, I've been thinking about me. Well, we have all these really weird similarities that I didn't know about. We're only really friends in college because I think we're both fun people to be around. and we enjoyed each other and we had similar interests, right?
Right.
But I can't ever really, even when we lived together, remember times sitting down and be like, hey, Greg, like, how was your childhood? Like, you never asked me either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I learned a lot about you. And maybe Mike did, or like other people in our group, but like I don't feel like I did, right? We were more like we trust each other. So anyway, so I was thinking about like all these weird similarities, right? And I was thinking about like all these little things that we did to like be in a similar kind of race with each other. I often wonder like if you and I were doing the same thing and we competed each other, who would win? Right? Not necessarily like we talked about, you're like, I'll beat anybody in this gym at any fitness thing. And then I was like, you want to do a max deadlift?
Yeah.
Right? So not necessarily in those sort of things, but like if you were to start a gym and I would start a gym, like who would be successful, right?
Sure.
But the thing is, we're both the type of people that would be like, oh, your gym's across the street, my gym's across the street. Like we should have lunch twice a week and fucking just like make our street the best. That's how I feel, right?
100%.
So... But I think for people who are like more competitive, like I kept thinking about this. All right, like I was captain of this, and then but like I always tried really hard to like be very good at everything I was doing. And then I thought these little wins were the things that built my confidence. And then I thought, well, how do we resonate with people who don't have that, right? And the reason I really thought about this was I was going to come in and I was going to say, Greg, I think I'm more of a winner than you are.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
This is why. This is my argument. That you have competed in more things than I have as a whole in your life, right? And you've lost more because you compete more.
Sure.
And it's this idea of trying. If you don't try, right, you can't win, you can't lose.
Sure.
And I have, because I wasn't a professional paintball player and didn't play 30 to 100 matches a year and things like that, my record for winning is greater, right? Because I pick one thing, like my job is to be the best at this thing for 1 year.
Right.
Your thing is to win. I might win at 6 things a year. You might win at 6 things a year, but you're losing at 40.
Right.
Right? And I was thinking about that. It's not like a very good way to compare life in general.
Yeah.
But it took me onto this tangent of thinking about people who don't try because they're not confident enough to try. And I think that's where this kind of like, this brings me back to your quote, that a lot of times people give up because it's a confidence thing.
Sure. Well, we talk about this. We talk about kind of all the information that we've absorbed from guys who have done better than us, you know, in one scale or another, right? And I reference Ed Milet all the time. Dude's an extremely wealthy guy, built tons of businesses, didn't come from anything.
That's the guy who made Fit Crunch.
That's not. Bar. But don't touch my protein bar, dog. But he talks about self-confidence, and this is just another podcast I listen to, and his definition of building self-confidence or seeing confidence in someone is simply keeping the promise to yourself.
Right.
So if you continuously, fitness, right? If you say you're going to do 15 and you do 12, yeah, you're not going to be confident because you know you're not going to keep a promise to yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you tell yourself you're going to do 15, you do 15, 16, 17, you stand up and you're like, yeah, I'm the shit. Like, that's how you feel. Right.
So this is to tangibly give this to somebody where they're like, hey, assholes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm spending the time listening to your podcast. How do I do that, right? This is the trick that I was taught, right? And I don't know if I innately took these things. This is what and it kind of flows in two things. One thing, bodybuilding is all about that last, like, 2%. Everything works in that realm. So for me, my life has always worked like that because that's what I gravitated as a kid. You cannot be successful without the last 2%.
Right.
There's no way to be successful with that. You can't grow muscle. You can't sustain it. You can't lose fat without the last 2%. I learned that really young. And I've taken that my whole life and realized it's that last little effort, right? You have to do everything before it, but everybody else is doing everything before that. It's the last effort, right? So that was kind of the first thing. The second thing I learned was, like you said, 15 reps. And what I was taught by my workout partner / like mentor was that when we worked out, if you couldn't do 15, you racked it. So let's say 12. I'd hit 12, couldn't do 15. I'd rack it. You'd wait 10 seconds. You unrack it, and you do 15. You do two, like the next 3.
Yeah.
That's what I was taught. 15 is what we're hitting. You may not be able to hit 15 right now, but you will get 15.
Right.
That's how my life works, and I think that's a tangible way to look at it. and you don't leave the gym without hitting those numbers, right?
Right. So yours is get it done no matter what, basically.
In a way that makes sense, right? Like, first off, the first thing, like you're saying, is only 1% of the people will even like try, say, like go till failure, right? They're like pushing and they're going, or whatever it is in business or whatever, they're going to a point where they're like, I'm tired, right?
Yeah.
It's 8 o'clock. I'm feeling a little tired. I think I'll go to sleep, right? So that's the first part. I go until I can't go, right? So that's the 12. That's as many as I could possibly do. I could not do another one. I'm going to crush this bar on my neck. The next one, but I committed to 15. That's keeping myself accountable to what I told my partner and what I told my body. I'm going to rack it. I'm going to give myself 10 seconds. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do the next 3.
Cool. I love it.
How do you approach these sort of situations? Because that's I think... Looking back at us, that's how I pictured it. Like, to me, I'm like, that's my success in kind of a nutshell, is setting those being taught those sort of tangible goals as a kid.
Sure. So I have 2. I like to do one more than the other because I feel like I grew out of one. So the one that I originally would do is I'd always do one more than I told myself. So if I told myself I was going to do 15, I would do 16. If I broke it up like you did or anything else, this was most effective for me, like on a treadmill. I never ran an even number, right? If I was like, man, I'm going to do 10 minutes, I did 10:01 every single time. And I was like, I did an extra second, you know? Yeah. But it seems so stupid, but it was super effective. Well, I kind of grew out of that because I was like, man, I can just keep adding, and I'm going to be on this thing forever, right? So I've switched to every day, whether it's in the gym or in life, I do something that makes me extremely uncomfortable. Like, very uncomfortable. And sometimes...
Every day you do
Every day. And sometimes it's, when all I want to do is lay down after 13 hours straight, right? I'll go home and I'll do a project for the wife, right? All I want to do is lay down, but I do that. Or when it's in the gym, let's say you do something really simple like arms and shoulders, right? You can wear out your arms, not a big deal. I'll jump on the air bike and I'll do 2 miles as fast as I humanly can. And dude, I've never rolled around in pain from working out. I was rolling around in pain from working out.
That sounds, it
was terrible. But now I've actually, in a very short time, learned to love it. So now when I run into something that's uncomfortable, I don't even flinch. I'm like, cool, let's do it. We're getting it. It's not a mountain anymore. It's a molehill.
But are you challenging yourself if you don't ever put yourself in a situation that has that same feeling? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So constantly challenging yourself is how you're going to grow, right? But maybe you don't always run into a challenge. My day might be a challenge for someone else, right? Maybe someone can struggle just to get through my regular hour. But
to get through your hour,
yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Like it's for each individual. All I'm saying is when you get to the end of a good routine, when you get to the end of a hard day, do one thing that makes you really fucking uncomfortable. And I mean really uncomfortable, like hard to breathe, exhausted, like on bordering dangerous. And that, because every time you come up to a task like that, it's not going to be as big of a task as it once seemed. You'll get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay, I agree with. Okay, I see that. I don't do it to that extent. I don't think, like, maybe I'm not. I'm trying to think if I'm like, I guess I could put myself in that sort of position, but that's just like not how I function. I think for me, I'm more of I told you, like, I agree with you. I told you, do the hardest thing you have to do that day first, right? I do believe in things like that, right? Or when you wake up, like, make your bed or do things that are, if they take a minute or less, do them now, right?
Yeah.
So I do agree with things like that. Like, I told you, for me, the hardest thing, and this is something that, like, I've grown into. I didn't used to really care. But now, for me, the hardest thing is getting out of bed. Like, I don't know if you have that problem, but, like, I'm like, dude, it's fucking 4 a.m. and I don't really want to go. First off, I don't have to be up. That's the thing.
That's the big thing.
Like, that's you. And I was wondering about this about you. I'm like, if you didn't have to get up and be at the gym, would you get up at that time?
No, I'd get up an hour later, easily.
Right.
Yeah.
So that I was thinking, I'm like, I don't need to be up at 4. I don't need to be up. I don't have to do anything until like 8 or 9, right? So I'm getting up 4 or 5 hours earlier than I have to because there's things I want to get done, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's the hardest thing for my day. I'm like, get out of bed, because getting out of bed gives you these hours to to do more things. Now, whether you get up and you choose to like read that day or whatever it is, doesn't really matter, I don't think, as long as you're doing something productive to help yourself.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I approach it.
I'm with it. I mean, I think that's probably more relatable. I think more people struggle with something what should be very simple, right? And like you said, mine, I wouldn't get up. I mean, my alarm goes off at 2:45.
Yeah.
I would not get up at that hour.
Like, I also feel a little like it's a little easier to get out of bed when if I had to be at the gym to train somebody.
It is.
Or like something, it's a little easier for me to get out of bed because when I'm like, oh, I'm going to make some money, I'm going to talk with fucking Kyle, who's like a cool dude or whatever, like, you know? Like when I was opening the gym, like it was a little bit easier. But now that I'm getting up to study or I'm getting up to learn a language or whatever, I'm just not as excited about it, I guess.
Sure.
Maybe I should be.
Maybe you should be.
Yeah, maybe I should be.
You know, one thing that, since we're on the topic of getting up early, again, this is just something I heard along the way that I really started to apply, is, trust me, dude, there are days where I'm like, there's no way. I'm not getting up again. I'm done. I'm cooked, you know, I'm out. I started trying to be grateful. So being grateful is something that you hear all the greats talk about, and it's actually kind of hard to do. So I started changing what I told myself about getting up early. I don't tell people like, man, bro, I have to get up at 2:45.
Right.
I go, I get to get up at 2:45 because I can, because I'm capable, because I have work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I have all these things that are actually positive about getting up at that hour, more so than oh, bro, I'm a little tired. Like, what a weak negative thing to say.
Positive word association is such a powerful tool for this sort of, like you said, like saying I get to do that. I learned that with grades.
Yeah. That
teachers don't give you grades, you earn grades. And people fucking hate when I say that. Like, shut up, you asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's the truth. Like, and once I kind of like started really kind of like being like, you know what, they're right? Like teachers. And the other thing is, like, I was a graduate assistant for a year, so I taught public speaking. And I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and they don't really care. Like, they care about you, they care about your education. But the truth is like, they're just like, dude, just do your work. It's your thing. Like, you want to be better, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not this invested in you for the most part, unless it's like a made-for-TV fucking movie where they're just like staying at home crying because you're not doing your homework, right? Like, they don't care if you get an A, they don't care if you get a B, it's you earn it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing you're saying, like changing your word association to like, I get to do this versus I have to do that is, I think, a super powerful tool. One thing we'll talk about like business depression, like depression and things like that later. But like a lot, like when I used to get in these slumps, right? Like, one thing I used to do was gratitude. The first thing I would do was wake up, my alarm go off, I'd turn it off, and I'd be mad that it was annoying because Apple has horrible ringtones. And I'd wake up, I'd sit up, and the first thing I would do is I would do 20 things that I was grateful for. But the one thing I never did was say, I'm grateful that I woke up today.
Yeah.
Which is what you kind of said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I probably should have.
I heard, and dude, I wish I could quote all the people that I keep saying, I heard. I just don't remember because I consume something every day. I don't listen to music anymore in the car. I mentioned this in the first podcast. I listen to something beneficial. And someone was talking about how his whole thing is about like wellness and mindset and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, man, I tried to go 30 days. And the first thing I thought and did when I woke up was tell myself thank you, or just say thank you for, whatever you believe in, right? I woke up today, thank you. He's like, dude, it took me like half a year to do 30 days in a row without waking up and checking a phone first, going to do something else first. Like, to make that thought so conscious when you first wake up was so difficult for him, and like that's what he does for a living. Mm-hmm. What an insane concept, man. I think people get caught up in little shit.
Yeah, I think for me, because I've always been such a high capacity person, like I'm doing so much, that's something that I really had to integrate, and things that I used to preach to other people who were like having a difficult time. Like, hey, have you ever tried to like gratitude? Have you ever tried to like once a day, no matter when? I like to do when I wake up, but you can do it after you shower or whatever. A lot of people say look in the mirror and say it, whatever. But have you tried to do that? And people are like, oh, like It's such an odd thing that that people don't think about doing things like this, but there's such positive reinforcements. And maybe it's because, like, as a kid, most people who grow up in, like, well-adjusted households, they are shown appreciation by their parents, right?
Well-adjusted households.
Well, for me, like, I grew up in a foster care.
Well,
so
clearly, based on that wording.
No, well, I mean, I said it in a way that, like, if you live in because this is a whole another podcast that I do want to talk about, is, like, privilege versus not privilege, like, upbringing and that sort of thing in business. Because I do think that's a huge resonating topic right now, especially with the growth and push of the Black culture and Black business. I'm seeing that a lot in Sacramento, like, dine in Black businesses, things like that. And if I see it, I'll share it or whatever. But the reason, anyway, it doesn't matter. But, like, having somebody in your household who's positive toward you. And I think when you grow up, you have that a lot. You're like, most parents are pretty positive to their kids. Like, oh, hope you have a great day. I love you, whatever it is. But then you get older and you're not at home anymore. Right? And I don't think parents teach their kids to do that to themselves. They don't say, hey, be grateful for the shit that you have. Right? I mean, if you're, like, being an asshole and you're like, I want that fucking new bike, they might say that. But for the most part, I don't think they do. And so you don't learn how to do that. And I think it's through listening to podcasts or other people who are positive or influencers or whatever, where you start to learn, like, hey, once you get past a certain point in your life of, like, achievement, or, like, while you're growing in that sort of thing, and you start to take on these larger capacity items, you have to find ways to make your life a lot more positive.
Well, it's like you said, so few people try. 1% of people that even hear this will try any of those things, right? So it's one, trying, and two, being aware of it, like you said, listening to something, and kind of being open to it. Like, the idea of being grateful, you got to be open to that shit. Otherwise, you're going to just feel like an idiot. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, nah, I'm not doing it. I did
kind of feel like an idiot for a minute, though. But then, like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it for 7 days. That's what I told myself. I'll do it for 7 days because I'm very much, I was just listening to the Joe Rogan show, and I was listening to this guy named David Cho. Have you ever heard him? No. He's the guy that, the Facebook hired somebody and commissioned them to paint their walls.
Okay.
He's the guy that got $200 million in, essentially, when they went public, the shares he had equaled $200 million. That is, like, the least craziest part of this guy's story. He also went to the Congos when he was 18 to try and find dinosaurs and got lost. Like, you should listen to it. But I was talking to him, and he was talking about how he goes to all these, he has, like, really, like, bad self-image issues, things like that. And he goes to all of these self-help. He's super rich. So you can go to the best self-help court, like rehab places, things like that in the world, right? And they all essentially do the same thing. It's like self-actualizing, like, that you're a good person, that you're lucky, that you're in this world, and no matter what situation you're in, right? Like, I think that is a powerful thing to do, and I think you and I have both those perspectives. Like, I think that's how people need to, like, start on this.
100%. And you know what happens for the people that don't? And this might be my biggest pet peeve, because I've heard it a million times said to me. When someone comes up to you, they see, I don't know, what you have, what you're doing, where you're at, and they go,
say must be nice.
Must be nice. Bro, that shit pisses me off so much. So if you're the type of person that says that, you need to open your eyes, because you're an idiot.
What if you just say it is nice?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah,
nice. Damn right it's nice. Check it out.
Yeah.
What, you want to come scope it out? Like, dude, it drives me bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big thing in paintball. And, we've kind of touched on it a lot, but I'd go to these places teaching kids how to play paintball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be the telltale kid who's like, bro, well, maybe I could be that good if I got free paint and free equipment and someone paid for it. And it's like, you think this is what happened when I was 10 years old?
Right.
No one was paying for any of this shit.
I can call my dad and
get
his credit card bill out for you.
Bro, man. Not even. I was breaking my back at the paintball field to earn paintballs, not even dollars. You know what I mean? Like, that must be nice comment drives me absolutely crazy.
What was it when you first came? This is, like, how, like, we first kind of bonded was we were, like, hanging out and you were talking about paintballing, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I've never done that, so... cool.
Yeah.
But you were like, oh yeah, like I was working at this shop in Modesto, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm from that area, and you're like, yeah man, I play paintball out there, blah blah blah, And I was like, you were. I think at the time you were a pro, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I did think it was kind of weird. I was like, wait, you work at this shop in Modesto, and then you also like do stuff at the field or whatever. I like it kind of like I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, but all right, like whatever. Because when you think pro, you think millionaire, right, or whatever. At least making like 100, 250 grand a year. Yeah. So that was always interesting. But you had to work for it, is what you're saying.
100%.
I mean, even when you got paid, you were working for it. It's not like fucking. They were like, oh, here's money, whatever.
Dude, I gave up. So, kind of on this topic, and then I'm going to come back to the actual dollars, right?
Yeah.
So, when I was at the peak of the industry, literally getting paid the most out of any of the players, I gave up my life to do it.
Uh-huh.
I was traveling for 2 weeks at a time for each event.
Mm-hmm.
So the most I was ever home during that time frame was like 2 days, 3 days. And then to continue to make a living, I was playing all those other events. This was like 2016. Dude, I was never home. At one point, I was gone for 63 days straight.
You're
like
never at my birthday, dude.
Never. I was gone.
Jerk.
What do you want, man?
Jerk, man.
But yeah, it's crazy. So it's not like, oh, bro, must be nice. It's like, bro, you get on a plane for 18 hours and see how you feel. But the dollars. Ready for this? So one day I was playing paintball in Idaho at the peak of my game, getting paid money full time. I got picked up from my buddy's house after a little partying.
Right.
In an Infinity for an Uber. And I'm like, this is a nice Infinity.
That's weird, yeah.
Yeah, so me, a couple beers in, I'm like, hey, bro, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, I'm like, you're clearly not an Uber driver. And he goes, bro, you're never going to believe this. And I'm like, thinking, I'm a pro paintball player. Hit me with it. What do you got? He goes, I play competitive cornhole.
Nah.
I'm like, no way, dude. So I tell him about paintball a little bit, and he's like, yeah, bro. And he kind of ends, and I was like, hey, man, you know, athlete to game star. How much are you making?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really curious. And he goes, oh, bro, you know, like, I don't know. I get a base salary of like $70K. I win a couple tournaments a year. He's like, I probably get like $150 to $200K depending on how much I win each year.
In cornhole.
Bro, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, but you probably crush it, right? And I just sank into my seat like, nah, dog, that's not like that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, dude, and all I could think is like,
where are all these cornhole sponsors?
Bro, I don't know. I saw it on ESPN
Korn?
though.
Is it Korn that sponsors them?
You think?
Korn is a big industry, man. So maybe they are. They're like,
shout out Monsanto. Yeah. But yeah, dude, straight up. So literally, I mean, if that's not making a dream out of nothing, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, the same thing happened like 2000. I want to say like 2009 to maybe like 15 or something like that. Beer pong was really big.
Yeah.
I remember like people were like making thousands of dollars in Sacramento in tournaments, and I remember they were going to Vegas for like the world champions and shit, and I was just like, first off, that's awesome, but I gotta finish my schooling.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think we talked about this. I think there's a way to make money in most things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, you have to be comfortable with, you know, how much you're gonna make, what does your lifestyle entail, and things like that, and you have to tailor it, right? And I think, like I said, for me, my biggest thing was I need to make enough money to transition out of my job, because I was working 100. Like, the most hours I worked in 1 month was like 420 hours, right? So that's a busy month.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I can leave this job that I'm working that many hours and making like $50K a year and move to a job where I'm making the same amount but only working, let's say, 40 hours a week, that's a win.
Yeah.
And you need to look at it that way. I think a lot of people, they just look at it money. The older you get, the more you realize how important your time is, right?
Yes.
Especially, as Greg knows, as you start to add family members in and things like that, right? These other things are not nearly as important. And so I think about that a lot, and I think about like that sort of whole kind of overarching like concept of the value of things.
Yeah, man, I was going to go a different direction with it, but you hit the nail on the head. And now you got me thinking about hourly pay, because I joke about, you know, I trained 13 hours back to back on Monday.
Yeah.
And you know what else you can do with your day after 13 hours of work? Pretty much jack shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, bro, if you want to do something above average, you want to be great, you can't work by the hour.
Right.
You can't. I don't even care if you're a doctor, man. You are you're neck deep in debt for 3/4 of your life.
Well, even with, I had a quote that I pulled in, maybe I'll do a different day, but it talks about how essentially it says that, like, you know, we're raising minimum wage.
Yeah.
And they're essentially saying now you just put all the hardworking people back to the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? That sort of idea. Like, they worked really hard to get up to $15 an hour, and now you're just saying, well, nope, start back at the beginning. And that's the reality of it.
Well, you know what the long-term reality will be? If you bump the minimum to 15, then those middle-class people who are getting 15 will get bumped also. But as everything gets bumped, so does the cost of goods.
Right.
Well, so does the value of goods. So then everything shifts up, and then we just have a lower end dollar.
Mostly,
It's just inflation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole. We're not economists by any means, but that's a pretty basic thing to follow.
Get an A in Econ 1 and 2.
Oh, there you go. Pretty basic things to follow, guys. But I think the point being is that, like, I do want to touch on a bit, like, this sort of the concept we're talking about outside of the business, like creating your own business, and talk about it in the field of just being an employee, because I think that's where it starts for a lot of people, right? Yeah. And so I was thinking about this where it's like, it's weird because we did a podcast like a week ago, right? But I have so much things going in my head. I'm like, man, I could do a podcast every fucking day with how much stuff I want to talk about. But
I ain't got time.
Yeah. But essentially, you know, if you want to, you don't have to build your own business to be successful, right? I mean, we've discussed this.
Yeah.
So this kind of taking the same sort of mentality and taking it to the workforce, and whether you work at McDonald's or you work at wherever, the movie theaters that are not open now, but when they were open, or if you're a business, like, you know, the start lower entry person, like taking these same concepts that you're talking about and applying them to be successful in what you're doing, right? Because that's what I always did. No matter where I was like, I could think I can do what that guy does, which would be the manager or the boss. I'd say, I think I can do it, or I know I can do that. What do I need to do that, right? Because people don't promote people that are doing the bare minimum or really even barely above, right? That's very rare.
What do you have? Dude, so yours is from a business standpoint, whereas my view is from a paintball standpoint. Okay. When I was a kid looking at a pro paintball player, that I was like, man, that guy's not that good. Okay. I could play better than him. Mm-hmm. I think there's a mixture of things that not have to go right, but you have to make happen. Mm-hmm. Right? So, yeah, maybe you're an astounding worker, but you don't have the experience. So how do you multiply your experience in a short amount of time? Or maybe
How do you multiply your experience?
How do you? I think the best way is honing in on hours.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is something I took from another entrepreneur, but it's the idea of if you have to create multiple days within a day. So if your first 4 to 6 hours of your day, you're like, man, I'm going to be the best at editing this podcast, right? That is me. So that's the first 6 hours of your day. Then the next 6 hours, you're like, I'm going to be the best at whatever, my personal training.
Sure. Okay,
cool. So then in your next 6 hours, you do, hey, I'm going to be the best father and husband, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you just had 3 days in your single day. Whereas most people kind of fumble through their day doing one thing, they get about 6 hours in actual work done. You got 18.
Sure.
So you're tripling down on your experience in each thing, and you could actually hone in on this concept by doing multiple tasks within one job. So let's say you're a personal trainer and you want to own a gym, right? You're like, man, I could own the gym. The owner here sucks. I suck, right?
I mean, no one's arguing that.
Yeah. So you could spend part of the day doing personal training. Then you could do part of the day doing marketing the gym and yourself. Then you could do part of the day on client acquisition, right? You just triple down on what other people fumble through all day long.
Do you feel like you can do that here, though? Like, you feel that's... Because this is the thing, like, I... Especially in, like, maybe it's a little slow right now, but as you pick up pace, or maybe you already experienced that, you feel a lot of things bleed in. And I feel that a lot on, like, the mortgage side, right? Because let's say I'm working, like, 10 loans, right? Mm-hmm. They're all in different areas. I can't just say I'm going to do all of the gathering right now, and then now I'm going to do 2 hours of calling all the underwriters, and then 2 hours of talking to the realtors, right? Like, my whole day is like everybody's in a different spot. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could say, like, I'm going to do 8 hours of loan processing, and then I'm going to do 4 hours of real estate, like, development.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I think it's... I guess I'm only talking about, only like saying that maybe it's not as easy as you're making it sound. People need to realize that.
Yeah, I don't think it is, right?
Because it's not like you can say that, like, I've seen you. You're like, I walked in and you were talking to somebody for your business while I'm setting up for the next thing you're doing, while you already overlap something that probably was more important, right? I mean, realistically, so like, it's not that easy just to say, like, I'm going to split it up, but I do think that's a really great way to think about it.
Sure.
Because I think at least being mindful about that makes an impact.
Yeah, well, and what I found in trying to do that myself is, one, I honed in on a lot of downtime of preparing, right? So I overlap things so that things are more prepared, or so that I can, optimize the time that I'm spending on it. Or what I'll do is I don't have to plan, right? I know that on Wednesdays, I'm done personal training at this hour. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm podcasting. As soon as I'm done, I have to go to this. And as soon as I'm done, there's no, oh, man, what else do I have to get done today? And as an entrepreneur, as the gym has grown, as I've had a physical grown, as the physical location has grown, I've realized, unlike in prior years, I never sit down and go, man, what do I need to work on? What do I need to push forward with?
I already know.
I already know. It's already in front of me because of everything else that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So there's no downtime.
My day used to be like that. It's more backwards now. I know that I need to like check these certain systems, but also I'm like, because the when it comes to loans, a lot of these companies are in different time zones, so business gets done at different times, and so things might get done while I'm sleeping, and things might get done before I'm awake or right as I'm awake or whatever. So I have to do a lot of like catch up stuff, even though like I guess the first thing is like check your emails. That's the first thing I do, right? But it's like I don't feel like I can get on top of it very much yet.
Right, and it's going to be different for everyone's business, right? But I think that's probably the most efficient way to accelerate your experience, especially as an employee. Because, I mean, I would hands down notice that.
Yeah.
Right? There are so many little things that I watch my people walk by, and I'm like, man, it drives me bonkers.
I could almost like even just like make it that much more simpler. Is just like do things you're not asked to be told. Do things you're not told to do.
Absolutely.
Right? And I don't mean like if you're not the person that's the accountant, don't go start counting all the money. That's not what I mean. What I mean is like if you know things need to get done and it's a thing that you could do, but nobody asks you to do it and you do it because it's the right thing to do, or that's the sort of thing that a person above you would do. Those are the sort of tangible things that I think make a big impact in conjunction with what you're saying.
Absolutely. And just also, and this is something I really encourage my independent contractors to do, is if you can come up with something more efficient than what I do now, bring it on.
Right.
And I try to accelerate that because, like you said, you get caught up. You have a busy day. You're playing catch up on your emails. If you have someone who has a little downtime, that can be like, hey man, I know how to make that happen faster.
Sure.
Bro, you are more valuable than I could ever imagine.
So let's use this as a tangible takeaway for people, right? Okay. You have said, I'm not saying, you have said that you're not particularly good at like marketing, right?
Right.
So you asked me for help, or I offered help. I don't really remember how it went down. Either way. So I've looked at your page. I made you, 9 posts?
Yeah.
You haven't done them.
Done 2.
And you haven't done your map minutes.
I know.
So we've created a process to make you successful. And I only bring this back for you to kind of for us to think about, okay, these are tangible things in your business. And you have to weigh this for yourself, right? As a new business owner, I think you have to say, well, how important is marketing today? Versus how important is being able to pay my bills at the end of the month and what I have to do today to be able to do that. Traditionally, marketing is not going to be the thing that pays your bills at the end of the month.
Right.
You might get people in the door, things like that, but really in Greg, your instance is I need to train this many people and I need to make sure my trainers are training this many people and I need to get this many people in the door in order to do that, right?
Right.
So I think this sort of thing maybe falls to the wayside. But for me, as a marketing professional, I look at it and I say, I agree with you, but also your brand is the most important thing in the world.
Yep.
Right? So this is important too. So when you look at your company and you look at your marketing, which is lackluster at the moment, what do you feel when you think about your marketing?
What do I feel?
Yeah, what do you feel?
Ooh, a little embarrassed. Only because I know that that's something I'm slacking on, right? I'm brutally aware of it. but I also don't want to make the quality of it mundane.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not going to film something at 9 p.m. when I look like hell because I feel like hell. You know what I mean?
Sure.
My Map Minute's going to come out like crap. So I'd rather forego that while I'm working on things that are bringing people in the door at the time.
Right.
And find other ways to either pass that job off to someone else, which is potential, right? It's a possibility. Or I need to, again, kind of sit back and re-strategize of, okay, is 13 hours on Monday really necessary? Can I get away with 12? Can I get away with 10 and still make the business run effectively so that I can do a few things? You know what I mean? It's about restructuring.
Right. The thing about that, this is just a tangent, but the thing I love about the podcast is like, I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm hoping it's something we'll continue to do because I feel like it's a time capsule, right? And it's something that I've wanted to see and I don't see in a lot of places. Like, you're building your business, and how amazing would it be to go back and listen to you talk about these things when you have a multi-million-dollar gym franchise.
Heck yeah.
It's a very cool thing, not only for listeners, but for yourself to be like just feeling nostalgic, man. I'm going to go listen to the podcast and I'm like, man, I can't believe...
Is this that buzzing one?
Yeah. I can't believe I said that, or like, man, I was spot on about that. Sure. Like, it's such a cool like thing, and maybe we're all kissing our own asses over here, but I was just thinking about it as like, as it pertains to the business, right? Because this is something you don't have to do. This is something I don't have to do. We're doing it to provide value. Hopefully, it'll yield some sort of results for us in the future. But also, I think it's just an opportunity to soundboard off each other once a week.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we integrate parts of our own business as a way to to do that, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel, and we're not going to do a, what do you call it? Yeah, we're not going to do a... Twitter, Reddit today. I was actually going to do Twitter today, but I just want to kind of round this off. I know we need to do this a little shorter today. Actually, we're at 50 minutes, so it's almost as long. But how do you feel about your business as a whole?
As a whole, from any standpoint, just in general.
Like right now, you're what, 9 months in?
Yes, in July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? Like, do you feel like you're winning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm winning. I'm starting to get to a point where people think the business is more valuable than it currently is, just from a straight dollars in the door standpoint. Yeah, and it's because of how much we're doing here, how fast we're growing the physical location. But I think people overlook the costs associated with that.
Yeah.
But we're on track. I think we're doing it right. And I'm starting to see what's most important each day, rather than being like, oh, all right, same old grind. Right. So I'm getting the larger perspective, and I think we're winning.
Yeah, when we went to Portugal, we met with investors and VCs and things, and we got not an official, but after they saw our pitch deck and things like that, they value and we were 2 years in, maybe 2.5 years in. They were like, yeah, this is probably worth this idea is probably worth $3 to $5 million right now. And we're like, really? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It is. It's a great idea. It just has to be developed, right? But same thing with yours. And you and I talked about this, program development, branding, all of these things are integral parts to growing the business. But for myself, the one thing I feel just as an update, I feel like I'm failing in is I talked to somebody the other day and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize you were doing real estate.
Ooh.
They thought I'm a loan processor or a loan originator. That's what they thought. They're like, oh, I just thought you did loans. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because most of the things I market about right now is that side of it, because I'm studying a ton of hours a week and I'm doing all this stuff. And so I realized that there's room for growth for me, and I really need to develop that side and really be some people know, but not enough people understand that I'm doing both. And for me, I feel like that's how I like to attack business anyway, but I'm failing on my marketing as well.
Wow, marketing guy failing on marketing.
I know, it was a really sad realization for me, but I'm like, I get it, right? This is why I kind of brought it up, because we both get so busy, right? We work these days, we do these extra things, and it's just hard. And so to take it back to the quote, guys, you're going to fail at things, don't get me wrong, you're just not going to have enough hours in the day, but that is not an excuse to cut things short.
Rack it and take it back out, dude.
That's not an
Rack it,
excuse
take
to
it back
do
out.
things short. You guys have to put the effort in. Use these tricks we talked about today to try to reach these goals, these tangible goals to make yourself successful. Repetition is key. If it's not working, do it again until it does work. It will work eventually, at least at these things, right? I know there's the whole adage of what's the definition of insanity, doing something over and over, but in this case this is not referring to that. So you got any key things to take away?
I think there's a million things that you can do from a business standpoint, but I like where we started from the beginning, and I think everyone needs to pursue their own self-confidence. Not fake it till you make it. I think you actually need to go out and do something tangible that you feel that you kept a promise to yourself, that you feel you deserve to be confident about in your own mind. Doesn't matter what it means to us, doesn't matter to anyone else, but you need to make sure that you feel that way, because it will change your approach to absolutely everything else you do. So start with your own self-confidence.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many small things that you can do every day. They don't seem important, but they really are super impactful to build confidence. So, all right, guys, we appreciate you being on today. As always, if you have any questions or comments, email us at thehardmoneyshow@gmail.com, as well as Dr. Ninja. We're going to be expecting a response from you, so don't fucking slack off on us. Greg's laughing at me, all right? But if you're going to ask for a shout-out, all right, we got to get some engagement from you. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. And you got anything for him?
See you next time.
What about stay dangerous?
Oh, stay dangerous.
Stay dangerous, guys. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.